How to lower your property taxes. That's today's episode. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, I'm Natalie Morris.
And I'm Clayton Morris.
Thank you so much for joining us. Today we want to talk about taxes. These are
fun.
Actually my favorite episodes because this is where I get to get wonky. We want to talk about how to contest your property tax value with your municipality so that you don't have to pay a ton in property taxes every year. Now, who wouldn't want that?
Right, and this is something you can actually do. So you might be saying, There's no way I can lower my property taxes. I get that bill, I have to pay it. Hogwash. In fact, one of our investing markets where we've done a lot of investing in Indianapolis, a number of years ago, the city decided to raise property taxes. And guess what? People came out and protested. And they went to City Hall and they said, nuh-uh-uh. And they actually lowered property taxes. Now, that was a more broad protest, but you individually can go to the county and actually contest your property taxes.
So we are going to tell you why you want to do it, how it works. We're going to give you some steps to do it. And then we're going to do a little story time and tell you about a property tax assessment win
I like
we
story
had
time.
last week. I am still sort of riding high on this win in my life. I can't wait to tell you all about it.
No, this is super exciting. In fact, when we got the letter back from this win, we've been like both holding on to it and carrying it around.
I carried it in my wallet because I needed this win in my life so badly. Now, let's talk a little bit about how this works and why you want to do it. Now, as a homeowner or an investor, right, you have to pay taxes to the state, the city, the county, right? They sort of divvy it up because you own that asset and you're taxed on the value of the asset. Now, wherever the house is how they set the rate. So let's say a house is worth $100, you're going to be taxed a percentage of that value, right? And so some states, some cities, some counties have higher tax rates than others. So obviously, you want the city to think that your property is worth the least amount possible because you are taxed on a fixed percentage, right? Now, you don't want actually your house to be worth a low amount. You just want the city to think that.
Right. So where you start in all of this, number one, you have to go to the county. And you typically will get this, and every municipality is different, but usually it's the county tax assessor's office. The county, I call it?
The county tax.
The county tax. The county's tax assessor's office. And it's very simple to do. You just call up your local municipality and find out where that is, what website. Usually it's online, and it will take you about 5 minutes to find your property. So this is something that our team does on a regular basis because we do a lot of real estate deals. And so our team is constantly having to pull the property tax records for a property. So you pull that card up, and it's just the parcel card for your property. It's going to show a long-winded tax ID or a tax number associated with your parcel or your parcel number. And it's going to have your bedroom, bathroom count. And it's going to have the tax assessed value listed there right on that parcel card.
In fact, just before we sat down to record this, I was looking up the property value of one property that we want to change the deed on. And so what I just Googled was, let's say, so-and-so county tax. What did you just Google the name of the county tax, and then it showed me which school district taxes which percentage, and then there were sort of columns. So this school district gets 0.0008 or something like that, and then the county gets this percentage, the state takes this percentage. You add those together, and that's the percent we tax you on this particular property. So you can look that up pretty easily. Now remember, once you have an agreed upon tax value, that number is the number that all future increases will happen upon. So when you become the homeowner, if you get a value that's high, that value is just going to increase. So that's why when you first see it, you want to say, no, I don't think so. Let's dance, right?
Right. So you're looking at, they're giving you a value of the property. And they're saying, look, based on the sales price of this property, we think it's worth this. So they're sometimes can be pretty lazy, and they're just looking at the sales price of the property. Well, guess what? That sales price, which we'll get to in our story in a little bit here, may be wildly off base, meaning the sale of that property may have included all sorts of repairs that are not currently done in the property. So the county may look and say, okay, that's $300,000 because that's the sales price. And then you look at the property and it's a burned out mess. Well, they don't know that would include construction costs and other things. So they're just looking at that sales price. They might not even come out and even look at the property because they can be kind of lazy about it. We fought this and had to deal with this in the state of New Jersey. Remember, in where we used to live, we had to do this with the local municipality as well for our tax assessed value because they were trying to claim a higher amount, and we had to show them that no. Just because of these fixes, just because of this, and we are actually able to get it lowered because of that.
Right. So you want to, most of the time they'll send you in the mail a notice saying we intend to tax you at this value and we estimate your taxes will be this. And that's sort of the shot across your bow saying, do you agree to it? Because the bill is coming after this notice, right? If you don't agree to it, this is when you're going to take action. Now, you can request information if it's not already on that notice on how they're coming to that value. A lot of times it will include square footage of the property, bedroom count, things like that. Sometimes they have it wrong, right? Maybe they are taxing you on too many bedrooms. Then that's easy. You go back around and say, no, this is actually not the case. Or sometimes they've given you too much square footage, right? You can sort of contest those factual things pretty easily. But if they're just taxing you based on their sort of assessed sales price, that's a different story.
Right. And you can, again, fight this. And it's funny how quickly New Jersey was ready to pounce on us when we were doing an addition on our house. Remember the tax assessor showed up at our house?
Right.
He knew that we had pulled permits. He knew that we were under construction. He shows up and he's like, oh, is this done yet? Is this done yet?
We're ready to tax you.
We're ready to tax you at a higher rate because we know you're adding on this amount of square footage to your property. We're like, it's not done yet. Please, can you give us a breather here until you decide to tax us more?
But literally, the moment the city permitted the completion of it, they slapped extra taxes on it. So they were on top of that. It's funny that, it doesn't work the other way around. Like if I were to deed you my property as a gift for $1, they would not allow you to be taxed on $1.
No.
They, so they are working to get their money out of you. Now, it's pretty easy these days to pull comps around
comparables,
right, to pull comparable sales around your property to prove that your property is actually not worth what they say it is. Nowadays, you can use Zillow, you can use Realtor.com, you can use all manner of websites to prove that properties around this area are selling for less than they are assessing, right?
Right. You can absolutely look these up and you can find comparables that might be foreclosures, might be other properties of equal value, and you can show those and present those comparables. It's different, of course, when you get into commercial property. So commercial property values are not based on what was sold down the street. Commercial value properties are valued on the income that property produces. So it's a little bit different. So if you're dealing with something that's even more than a 4-unit, which would be classified as a commercial property, then you end up having to find comparables based on income in the neighborhood.
Right. And so then you present your case. You are given the opportunity to appeal. And in most states, you can appeal all the way to the Supreme Court if you don't like the final answer. It just is a matter of how organized are you, how good is your research, and how much time you're willing to put into it. Sometimes if it's like, okay, I think the tax value is like $5,000 higher, may not be worth your time. But if it's hundreds of thousands of dollars higher, it absolutely is worth your time. And that's where we're going to get to our story time.
It's story time because a few weeks ago, Natalie gets a Facebook message,
right,
of all things, from the one particular county, and we'll show you some video here of this property and where this is in Ohio, where we own this property. But one particular county, one of the tax assessors reached out to you via Facebook.
Right. Actually, it gets even weirder than that. So I was selling some old spin shoes because they don't fit into my Peloton. It uses a different clip. Okay. So I had old spin shoes that I was selling on a swap group in my neighborhood. And I got a direct message on this sale item. And it says, I'm looking for the owner of this property. Is that you? I'm like, you don't want my spin shoes? And they said, no, but do you own this property? And I said, yes. And they said, okay, can you please call this tax office? So I called it. I'm like, this is some kind of weird trap. What's going on?
Right.
And the woman says, yes, we are with the tax office from this county. Did you know that the school board is trying to contest your tax amount? And they want to tax you based on $200 sales price instead of what it was before. I used to be taxed on $56,000, right? So this is the difference of about $150,000 that they want to increase my basis on. And I said, I did know that. I didn't know that there was anything I could do about it because I got the notice in the mail, I want to say around the spring, and I didn't really do much about it. And she goes, no, there absolutely is. We can set up a hearing for you if you want to contest this against the school board. And I said, but I don't live in the area. She said, that's okay. You can do it over conference
Skype.
call.
Right. So, I mean, what's amazing about this is because Natalie, you think about the government, you think, you're never going to get anywhere. You're going to deal with the IRS or whatever.
Red tape and everything. Right.
But, here's an opportunity for us to thank some of our government officials because they reached out to Natalie.
On my spin shoe post.
Yeah, on our spin shoe post. And Natalie said, I got to ask you, you're from the tax office. Why are you trying to help me? Like, don't you like higher taxes?
That's exactly what I said because I was just like, is this some kind of a trap? And the guy, it was a guy actually, I got on the phone. He was the main tax assessor and he goes, yes, but we're citizens first. And we know that if taxes are hiked in our area, we'll get less investment, we'll get less incoming citizens and residents, and we don't think it's fair. So we decided to help you. Now, what happened in this instance is that the property is worth about $56,000, but we paid when we bought it from the rehabber. It was a wholesaler in that area. He charged us for the rehab inside the sales price.
Right, so we bundled in the construction of it, which is going to make it look really nice inside the sales price.
Now, we were comfortable with doing that, right? Because we had a scope of work, we had an agreement with the contractor, and we liked what we think the finished product will be. Turns out this job went about almost a year over budget for timing.
Right.
So
but it's a big project, so it's a six...
The city is on top of this one. It's in a historic district. They had to pull permits that took them longer. It's going to be a great investment. But again, we paid for the rehab inside of the sale. Well, that triggered the school board to say, oh, we can tax them more because obviously the school board wants more money for the kids who go to school in that area, right? And so I had to then do all my homework, pull comparable listings around that area and prove nothing there is selling for $200,000. It will be worth that, but it's not now. So what I presented to them was all of the comparable sales in that area that showed the value closer to 50, not 200.
And some of them were 40.
Right. I showed also pictures of the current state. It's boarded up. You cannot even walk in it.
Yeah, take a look at this as you walk through here.
Right. It's not beautiful yet. You can see where it's going. Obviously, the contractors there are doing an amazing job. But I couldn't sell it for $200. No way, no how.
Right. Look at this. I mean, look at the framing that's happening. There's electric and stuff done, but the outside is still a mess. It's boarded up.
There's no drywall.
There's no mechanicals in the property. The roof just got done, so we did just put a new roof on it. But look, there's a ton of work that needs to be done on this property.
And then I also sent them the scope of work that we are expecting the contractor to do. So I gathered all of that. I submitted all that information in advance. The county was super helpful because I was like, how do I present this if I'm not going to be there? How do I present this evidence? They said, email it here and we'll have it at the time of the trial. Trial comes along and I'm super nervous.
Well, it's not a trial, it's a hearing.
It's a hearing, right. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to play lawyer here and present my case. Is this even a real thing? Are they really going to call me? They do. They call me at the appointed time and they say, okay, we're here for this trial. Who is here with us? And I say, I'm Natalie Morris. I own the property. On the other side, I'm so-and-so lady. I represent the county school district. And so we're just saying they bought the property last year for this much. We want to tax them on that. So then I speak and I say, it's clearly not worth that. If you look at the comparable values, if you look at how it looks right now, these pictures were taken last week. And if you look at the scope of work. So they said, okay, we'll,
Get back to you.
Here, we'll consider all of this. And a week later, we got a certified letter in the mail saying, we approve the fact that your taxed value will remain $56,000.
Woohoo!
Which is so exciting,
Yeah.
right?
So don't ever think that you can't take action and, and lower your taxes. Or, look, these agencies don't have to be scary. If you talk to the right people and you develop relationships at construction permit offices with the city, the water office, we're on the phone with the water department in Michigan, turning on electric,
Right.
and water and all that kind of stuff.
So often they say to me, oh, well, you got to bring this thing down then. And I'm like, I don't live there. And I just try and be nice. And usually I can come up with some kind of solution. It's not, you have to get past the first no. They're trained to tell you no. And then you just got to keep going. But in this instance, they sought me out and said, lady, I don't think it's fair that you're being taxed on this high value. Why don't you let me help you do something about it? So yesterday I actually went back to that spin shoe email and I said, I just wanted to thank you for this because you didn't have to find me this way. You didn't have to do this, but you acted like a little guardian angel for me because now I can pay reasonable taxes on this from here on out.
Right. And look, I think there's a moral in this too, just beyond, protecting yourself and going after and taking action on this.
Which is what?
Well,
Sell spin shoes online.
Sell spin shoes online because you don't know what you're going to find. Now, the other moral of this is, look, taxes matter to businesses. And I mean, maybe California could take a lesson from this, right? Maybe these high tax areas could take a real lesson from what these citizens are trying to do in some of these states that want investment, want growth,
Right.
In the state of Ohio or Michigan or other areas where, look, they're trying to keep costs down, prices down, property taxes down, because guess what? Investors like us go into those areas and are totally revitalizing a historic building.
Yeah, absolutely
A coffee
right.
shop just opened up nearby. There's going to be multiple tenants who are going to be living in this great new property that we're revitalizing, and it's helping the community. So, there's a lesson in that on the tax side.
Yeah. Don't talk bad about California. It's my
Oh,
state.
I will. There you go. So that's how to lower your property taxes. We hope you found this useful. Please subscribe. And also, you got to check out, brand new, is the Financial Freedom Academy. Visit financialfreedomacademy.com so you can check that out. We'll link that up right here on the site as well for all of your family needs. How would you describe the Financial Freedom Academy?
It's a workshop for families who want to build wealth and take their wealth building seriously the same way they do their careers. So we intended for families to take it together, hopefully, and learn how to take control of your finances instead of your finances controlling you.
Right. The links will be below. So thanks so much. We'll see you next time here on the Investing in Real Estate Show.